In the last few videos, I introduced you to quite a few methods on the java.util.collections class, showing you examples using a deck of cards. Now, it's your turn. Think for a moment about a card game that you'd enjoy building and one you know some of the rules for. Create a deck of cards, either a standard deck or a deck that's specialised to the card game you want to create. Feel free to use my card record from the last several videos as a place to start, or if you want to start from scratch with your own card class, by all means do that. Shuffle your deck. Maybe you want to include cutting the deck after shuffling as an example. Deal your players' hands, pick the number of players playing, and figure out how you'll deal the cards one at a time to each hand, or some other way. For example, in Pinochle, it's common to deal the cards out 3 or 4 at a time to each player until the deck is exhausted. Evaluate your players' hands for card combinations that are important to the game. Use a combination of java.util.collections and list methods to achieve your results. Okay, have some fun with this challenge. Challenge yourself to experiment with as many of the java.util.collections methods as possible, especially those that don't have a direct equivalent method on list. Be creative and remember, there's no right way to build this. There may be as many variations as there are students in this class. Challenges aren't about building the slickest code, but rather they are about putting into practice the things I've recently covered and challenging yourself to learn as much as you can about these topics. They're also about exploring different means to the same end, so even if you come up with one solution, maybe challenge yourself a little more to do it again in a different way. When you're done, or if you need additional ideas, come back and see the game I picked to build and how I went about it. Pause the video now. Okay, so how'd you do? I hope you had some fun with this. I'm going to code this challenge in the collections methods project I've been using because I plan to leverage the card record I created earlier in this section. I'll create a new class in a games package under my dev.lpa package and call it game controller. This class will also have a main method. Now I'll create my card game class. I'm going to start building a poker game, specifically 5-card draw. This game usually has 4 or more players. The dealer shuffles the deck and asks another player to cut the deck. The dealer deals the cards one at a time to each player, starting with the player on the dealer's left, until each player has 5 cards. Each player evaluates his hand for certain card combinations called card ranks. Each player can discard up to 3 cards. The dealer will replace discarded cards from the remaining pile in the order they've been shuffled. Each player re-evaluates his hand if he drew new cards and bets on his hand. This gives us quite a bit of work to do, so let's get going. I'll be implementing this game up to the point where each hand is evaluated with a few of the possible card ranks. The first thing I want to do is set up some rankings for card combinations. Let me show you the rankings on a WikiHow page for this game. If you don't know how to play this game and want to learn, I've included this link in the resources section. The thing to notice here is what's called the card ranks, which are the different combination of cards. The high card is the lowest rank and 5 of a kind is the highest. My own deck doesn't include a joker, so I'm never going to have 5 of a kind. In my example, I won't be coding the straights or flushes. Getting back to the code, I want to create an enum that can represent these card ranks. I'll put this enum in a package called dev.lpa.games.poker and call it ranking. I want to set up the hands with the worst hand in the first ordinal position, and that will be none for nothing of value in a hand. Remember, it's customary to make the enum constants all uppercase and words separated by underscores. I'll follow none with 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 of a kind, full house, and finally, the best hand is 4 of a kind, so it'll have the highest ordinal value. I'll end with a semicolon because I need a 2-string method. I'll replace super.toString with code to return the enum name value, which will be the constant name, but with underscores replaced with just spaces. That's all I need for my ranking enum. Before I continue, I'm going to edit the card record and add a public static method that'll return a specific comparator for me. I'll insert that after the enum and before the 2-string method. I'll make this public static comparator of type card and call it sortRank reversed suit. I'll return comparator.comparing using card's rank as a method reference, chained to reversed, so my higher ranked cards will be listed first. I'll follow that with a chained call to then comparing using a method reference for the suit. With that done, I now want to code a new class called PokerHand in this same poker package. A poker hand needs a list of cards. This will be the hand that's dealt. I want two other lists, one for the cards to keep, which I'll call keepers, and one for the cards I might want to trade in, so discards. This hand will also have a ranking, and that'll be my enum type. I'll initialize that to none to start. I also want a player number, an int, which is the order of the player, that is their placement from the dealer. Player 1 is immediately next to the dealer, and then the dealer will be the last player, the last hand to be dealt, in other words. I want to generate a constructor, and we'll need hand and player number as parameters. I'll reverse the order of the parameters because I prefer to have the player number first. Next, I want to sort the hand that was dealt, so I'll just call sort on my list, and for the argument, we'll call the new static method card.sortRank reversed, which returns a comparator. In addition to sorting and initializing hand, I'll initialize both keepers and discards to a new array list, the same size as the hand. Finally, I need a toString method on this class. I'll remove the poker hand in quotes, replacing it with a formatted string. I'll pass the player number the score and our enum, which will print the score name, so 2 pair, or 2 of a kind for example. I'll also print the ordinal value of the score, I'll print the hand, and finally if there are any cards in the discards list, I'll print those out. Before going any further, I want another class, which will be the game, so I'll create a class called PokerGame, also in my poker package. This game will have a deck of cards, which I'll initialize to a standard deck, using the static method on card to do that. Each poker game has a player count, the number of players playing, as well as a field called cards in hand, because different poker games are played with a different number of cards. Maybe another variable option would be whether the game is draw or stud, as an example. I will leave that for another day and assume the poker games will always be played with draw. I also want to maintain a list of the players' hands and another list that will be the deck of remaining cards. I'll generate a constructor for this, with parameters being the player count and cards in hand. I'll initiate my poker hands list in this constructor as well by creating a new array list, setting the capacity to the value contained in cards in hand. I want a method on this game which I'll call startPlay. It takes no parameters and returns no data, so just public void. I'll shuffle the deck here and print the deck out. Now let's say I want to provide a way to cut the deck next. When you cut the deck, you split the deck, often near the middle, and put the top part that you cut under the lower part. What method does that sound like to you? Did you guess rotate? That's what I'll use. Let's try that out. I'll call collections.rotate, passing the deck, and 26, the exact center of the deck, and I'll again print the deck. Let's run and test this from the game controller's main method. I'll instantiate the poker game with 4 players and 5 cards and assign that to a local variable I'm calling 5-card draw because that's the poker game I'm going to play. Then I'll call startPlay on that. If I run that code now, you can see I get the deck printed twice. The first is my shuffled deck and the second is the result of splitting and cutting my deck exactly in half. From this, I hope you can see that the first 2 rows in the first display of the deck are now the last 2 rows in the second output. Would anyone really split the deck perfectly in the middle? Probably not, so I'll just randomize that cut a bit. Going back to the startPlay method in PokerGame, I'll generate a random int, let's just say somewhere between the 15th or 35th card in the deck. I'll insert a statement that calls nextInt on a new random instance, with 15 and 35 passed to that method, assigning the result to a local variable called randomMiddle. I'll replace 26 in the rotate call with the value in randomMiddle. If I run this code again now, it's a bit harder to see where the cards were rotated, but it works in the same way. Right, back to PokerGame. Now I need to deal my deck. I've said I want to deal these 1 card at a time. I'm going to create a new private void method called deal with no parameters. I'll first set up a 2-dimensional array of cards, so 1 array of cards for each player. each player's array will contain the set of cards in hand. To deal the cards one at a time, I'll cycle through the deck one card at a time for each card in a hand. Then I'll loop through each player, assigning each card in each player's hand a unique card off the deck, using the deck index variable to keep track of the place in the full deck. I want to create my poker hands from this data, so first I want a variable for the player number. I'll loop through this two-dimensional array and instantiate a new poker hand for each player, passing it each player's array of cards, using arrays .asList in the constructor. Back in the start play method, call the deal method, print each poker hand. Let's run the code and see how it looks. You can see the cards in each player's hands. The rank is 0 for all hands because I still have to write the code to evaluate the cards. It's a little hard to confirm whether I've dealt these correctly, so for just a moment I'll comment out the sort in the poker hand class constructor. And I'll run that again. It's now a little easier to see that my first player's hand starts with the first card, then it has the fifth card in the deck because the other 3 cards went to the other player's hands, and then it has the 9th card and so on. But I want to keep my hand sorted, so I'll revert that last change I made to the poker hand. Since this video is getting long, I'll end it here, with my poker hands dealt out. In the next video, I'll set up another list for the remaining cards, and I'll evaluate each poker hand's cards, so I'll see you in that next video.